Hey yo, what is up everyone? It is the Alpha J of the Alpha J Show, and welcome back to Open Ended. It's a more technical and analytical segment where I, the Alpha J, decide to discuss certain meta topics of reviewing, analyzing, or critiquing. I wouldn't call these tips because I only present my thoughts in a casual manner, stripping down anything to the essential parts, so let's get into it. So what makes a good reboot? Recently, this has actually become a loaded and possibly controversial question, so I'll try to handle it as carefully as I can. Reboots happen quite often today in the animation industry, some of which people consider good and others not so much. To name a few, you have the recent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show, you have the Powerpuff reboots, Tom and Jerry many times, Scooby-Doo many times, Looney Tunes many times, and the latest run of Teen Titans. Bear in mind that this question is based off of subjectivity. That's why it's an open-ended question. There is no right and wrong. It's only what you agree with or what you don't. Many of my open-ended videos are designed to be subjective but still be open to discussion. So with that said, to know what makes a good reboot, one must know what the word reboot means. According to the Free Dictionary, a reboot is a film or television show that is a remake of an earlier production, typically with a different or a fresh viewpoint. According to Wikipedia, the verb reboot means to discard all continuity in an established series in order to recreate its character's timeline and backstory from the beginning. According to Visual Thesaurus, they have three words that mean different things that I'd like to share with you guys. So the first one is called a remake, which is a straight up retelling of the story for the purpose of updating it for a contemporary audience or making it accessible to a different culture or region. Then you have reboot, which is a course correction done with the purpose of restarting a franchise. A reset. Fealty to the original story or film is not a priority. Up until a couple of days ago at the time of recording this, who didn't know what fealty means, it's just a fancy way of saying it's not a priority to follow the original story to the T. Then we have reimagining. The third definition, a retelling of the story, but only in the broadest sense. Characters and some story elements may be retained, but mostly plot and story have been repurposed. I'm sure many of you, knowing these definitions, can probably apply them to some of the reboots that are on today. Personally, I would like to think that season 10 of Very Odd Parents is somewhere between a reimagining and a reboot. An unofficial one, but one nonetheless. And I would also like to think that Teen Titans Go is a reimagining. All of these have relevance and we'll come back later in this video. However, I'd like to focus on the one in the middle. So by combining these three definitions, we can get a general idea of what a reboot is. It's a show that's based off of an existing franchise that discards previous continuity to give you a fresh viewpoint on the concept. I think that's very important to know. I've been in discussions with people who confuse rebooting a series and continuing the series. There are shows that I would love to be rebooted, which unfortunately for you guys, I'll leave that to a particular video series. However, shows like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends or Camp Lazlo, I would love for them to be continued, not rebooted. A continuation in the broadest sense is to continue a show where it left off, but just in present day. Reboots have gotten somewhat of a bad rep with You Know What and That Other Show being the prime time of Cartoon Network. However, not all reboots are bad. I would argue that the latest Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles isn't bad. You know what other show really isn't that bad? The Looney Tunes show. And I would love to dive into why the Looney Tunes show works better than why that other show did not. So the original Looney Tunes was a comedy-heavy, gag-based show. The Looney Tunes show is not. It's more serious, it's more realistic, it's more laid back, and it's much slower. But I believe what makes this reboot so great is the execution of the show. Daffy is still at its core the same character, but he's just adjusted to fit into your average day life. Bugs is still very cynical and at its core very amusing to watch. But just like Daffy, he's adjusted to the circumstances of the reboot. Slower, realistic, and more serious. Instead of Bugs running from getting shot, he's dealing with the day-to-day life of Daffy, Porky, and the rest of the crazy individuals that he has to live with. The contrast is still there. Bugs is still the sane one, for the most part. He plays the straight man very well, and I think that's very important to his character. Sure, the original Looney Tunes is far more appreciated, but this is a good reboot. Now let's look at that other... now let's look at Teen Titans Go. It actually kind of did the opposite of what the Looney Tunes show did. Instead of having a very wacky comedy cartoon to start off with, Teen Titans Go was, for the most part, pretty serious. So it went from serious to funny, instead of funny to serious. Are the characters still at its core the same character? Not really. at least in my opinion. I can name plenty of episodes where every character acts like the same rude, obnoxious ball of ignorant hyper energy that the show prides itself on. There's no contrast. Not even Raven half of the time seems to care. She seems more apathetic than anything really. The characters who were once adored in a much more serious show that still had fun, but overall was much more serious, they didn't adjust well to this reboot. The execution of the series was not great. I would even throw in that the new Titans are over-adjusted to this light-hearted comedy reboot. But what made Looney Tunes is a large number of aspects. But for this open-ended, I'd like to focus on the characters. Each character is clear and has a concrete role. They play off each other very well. The protagonists are likable and the antagonists are people you want to see lose. All of that seems simple, right? That's because it is. Look at Coyote and Roadrunner. It's a simple story of hunter and prey. It's a basic story about human survival and that arguably we still have to deal with. So if we took the concrete role, playing off each other well attribute, and the idea of rooting for the protagonist to prevail, can you see the pattern? So in shows like the Powerpuff Girls reboot, are the girls at their core still the same? Do they represent what they represented to you before? If so, then you might consider it a pretty good reboot. And if not, then you would probably think that the latest Powerpuff Girls reboot is not good, just to say the least. A good understanding of the characters is a large piece of the cake that makes a reboot great. It's not everything, don't get me wrong, but it's a big piece. Usually like a show for the characters in it. Taking SpongeBob out of SpongeBob wouldn't feel right because he makes the show. You don't fall in love with the idea of a character selling chocolate door to door. You fall in love with the characters you know, SpongeBob and Patrick selling chocolate door to door. Heck, I would even argue that if I wasn't the one reading the script right now, you'd probably have a different opinion because there's probably little things that I do. Maybe you like my voice. I don't. But more importantly, the way that I do my videos is a large reason why you like me. And if another YouTuber edited my videos, it would just seem out of place. Whether it's good or not largely depends on you. Just like with reboots. So a good part of making a reboot is the characters. A solid, clear understanding of the characters is imperative for a reboot to be considered a good reboot. I will be doing more of these and giving examples and comparisons along the way. But I just wanted to get a head start on this concept before Voltron and Ben 10 and DuckTales come around, giving the internet another thing to complain about, which is ironic coming from me. So this was my open-ended, guys. What do you think makes a good reboot? Do you think that the characters are a large part of it? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, I hope your time was well spent. And Alpha out. Let me ask you a question. Can SpongeBob ever be fully replaced anytime soon? SpongeBob is, well, you know, SpongeBob. But did you know that according to a few sources, Nickelodeon was recrowned the #1 network for kids 2 to 11, surpassing both Cartoon Network and Disney with shows like the new smash hit Loud